finger the wrong way, which is down like that. That's just not a normal way for your hand to move. It's, clamp this finger down on top of it, because on bass, as I said before, it's a real strength instrument, and you really need a lot of strength to put as much into it as possible, so as much comes off of your instrument. You don't have to depend on your amp and all this electronic stuff to make your sound come out. You got to make things read loudly off the instrument itself alone. Even yes, exactly. So the double finger really gives you a chance to knock it right off the neck if you want. Really gives you a chance to really hit down really hard. It gives you way more strength. I mean, if you try it against your hand, it's way more strength down like that. You're going to really need that strength to make it sound live. So it doesn't slow you up at all.
Now, when you do phrases like that, are you crossing fingers?
Oh yeah. Sometimes I'll get this finger behind. See, because it's all you're doing when you're tapping, for anybody that doesn't know about it, is, you know, if you're playing a line, you've got like these notes that you're playing. Well, you just move this finger in and play those notes for these fingers. So you're like, you can actually do a double on one finger, a trill like that. I used to drive keyboard players crazy because they couldn't figure out how I was doing that in the early days. So you're hitting down, pulling off, hit down, pull off, down, off, down, off.
That's an interesting technique.
Then you can move it too. And then move out of the... See how the thumb is always right there?
Right, an anchor point.
That way I'll always know that I'm going to hit right on that G and I get that real strength thing. Because I've just, again, I've seen so many guys go out on stage with this incredible technique, you can't hear it. You can't, it doesn't read because there's no strength behind it. Always, you know, everybody spends too much time practicing at home alone. You should be out really with a band playing live and getting the kind of experience you really need to know what works and what doesn't. Because there's a purpose for learning all this stuff. And it isn't necessarily to sit in your bedroom and use it, you know, for whatever you're going to use it for. But the purpose of it is to perform and communicate and create music. And in order to do that, for my money, you got to do it live. So a lot of these techniques are meant, particularly, there may be a lot of other techniques that work very effectively, but this is meant to get out on stage and use under hot lights, with no monitors, with feedback, with everything.
Something you can rely on.
Exactly. So again, like just a couple of moves, like a...
Oh, wait, I saw you reaching down there. Now, what exactly was that all about?
Well, let me think now. Oh, okay, so if I was going to get... I need that note there. It's just an idea of how...
Hands crossing over. Yeah,
it's an idea of how things kind of get invented, you know, indiscriminately. They just come up. Instead of now, my arm is tucked into my body and I'm doing this position. Now if I need that note down there, this hand is free, it's not doing anything. Right. Now do I change my whole arm position to stretch down and get that? Or can I keep it in the same place and use that?
Yeah.
Way easier move.
More efficient, isn't it?
And it looks better too. So you go over here. I mean, people are like, whoa, what the hell was that? So, actually, it's way easier to do. Sometimes some things are good because they make it look harder than it actually is, but sometimes they're actually useful. Like over the neck things. When I first did that, when I first went over the neck, I found that it was easier for me to get those two harmonics there than like this, because your hands curve this way. When you put them over the neck, they flatten out. So you want that flat for those harmonics like that. So it always tended to flatten out and be a little easier to do, even though everybody thought it was total showboat. It actually had a purpose there to be used. So again, so when you go behind like that, sometimes there is a use for it. And there's all kinds of ways you can do hammer-ons, as long as you understand what notes you're going for. The basics of it are to get that real strong, solid blast on that. So if you can do that, then your choice of notes is totally up to you, whatever you end up wanting to do. It's kind of a double. What's happening
So there we're dealing adjacent strings?
Yeah, we're dealing with a couple techniques in a row there. So what's happening when I pull off this finger, this string with this finger, because there's so much strength behind it, with that other finger on there, it hits the string underneath it and actually plays that note. So you
almost
actually
like
get
a rake?
Yeah, it is actually a rake, and it ends up as kind of a half rake, half hammer-on. So you're going to have to coin a word here. We don't want a raker-on or a hamake or whatever, or a ham-hock maybe. So you get this like flurry of notes.
Sounds like almost like flamenco guitar.
Or flamingo guitar. Then you have to do that on one leg though. So you get like, that's just kind of an inadvertent technique that comes from applying a lot of strength to your hands. And once you just, my whole purpose in a lot of my exercises and moves is just to create a machine out of my hands so they do, you know, what they have to do on their own. And I can just kind of direct them from another spot in my mind, you know, so I don't have to really think about what I'm playing. Once all the exercises I show with the left hand and all the right hand stuff, once you build up your hands to a good machine, you can stop thinking about it, because when you think, when you're playing, as you probably well know, you're lost.
So you're talking about learning your left hand patterns, your right hand patterns, and finally putting it all together to the point where you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. As I said, when I found out all the things I was doing, it was only after I had actually done them for a long time that I actually sat down and figured out, oh, my finger's on the other side there. No wonder. Because naturally, when I'm playing live and the band is real loud, you can't hear anything, and I'm pressing out as hard, the natural thing you want to do is press harder. So out of nowhere, this finger just came around and started doing it like
Came
that.
to the help
and
of
just,
its assistance of the
next door neighbor, you might as well help him out, you know. So, you know, it kind of naturally occurs like that, and it's kind of a natural evolution of thing. And so then, again, a lot of this stuff began, I played in a three-piece band for almost my whole life, and so we always had to cover for other players. So I would, the hammering things, like in Schizoid Man, we used to play by King Crimson, that one, there's a soprano sax trill right in the middle of like, that, so I had to get
filling
that
in the
there.
missing part.
Yeah, so I always had to fill in the extra guitarist or keyboard player. So that's where things like, always at a double octave.
Yes.
Basically.
That almost sounds like a pianistic technique.
Yeah, it's kind of a, well, if you locked
or
your...
a drum pattern.
Yeah, it's
percussive.
it's drum patterns, whatever you might want it to be. Well, it's basically just drum rudiments tapped down. Have you ever see a piano player when they do like octaves?
Sure.
They kind of lock their hand in that little octave thing so that their fingers will always hit. And so I kind of do the same thing. Again, trying to, it kind of looks kind of Star Trek-ish, I know, but lock my fingers together like that, so it's an octave.
Right.
And then this hand, the same thing down here. It's not the same position for me personally, just because that finger doesn't fit there as well, but I try to double up on this finger to get that low note to sound really well, and I just hit, like if you're just riding along on an A.
Just straight ahead groove.
A little more interesting way of doing it, rather than...
More colorful, more energetic.
Yeah. And they can move it around to... And any drum rudiment you end up doing. And then from that, I got into fifths, where you can actually tap fifths, too, where you do... Individually tap, and you can also individually tap the octaves, too, in any kind of rhythmic pattern you can think of, and then you can get into all kinds of...
Now, in that case, what's going on?
Actually, it's just a E minor chord. So I take these two with that, and take these two outside ones.
Aha! Break up the chord.
Exactly. Now,